I wasn't doing it I don't need publicity. I get a lot of publicity. I would like to get a lot less publicity.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump, who is busy with his presidential election campaign these days, is once again embroiled in a new controversy, and this time it involves the American Army. On Monday, Donald Trump visited Arlington National Cemetery in an event intended to draw Americans' attention to the chaotic U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan in August 2021. During that withdrawal, a suicide bomber linked to ISIS-K killed 170 Afghans and 13 U.S. service members on August 26, 2021. On the third anniversary of that attack, Trump appeared to honor those soldiers in a wreath-laying ceremony hosted by the victims' families. These families had already criticized Joe Biden for mishandling the withdrawal, aligned themselves with the Republican nominee, and attended the Republican National Convention this year.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the Gold Star families of our fallen heroes.
While Joe Biden has refused to recognize their sacrifice, Donald Trump spent 6 hours in Bedminster with us. He allowed us to grieve. He allowed us to remember our heroes. Donald Trump knew all of our children's names.
I'm Cheryl Jules, Nicole's aunt. Joe Biden said the withdrawal from Afghanistan was an extraordinary success. An extraordinary success. Look at our faces. Look at our pain and our heartbreak. And look at our rage. That was not an extraordinary success. The humiliation of our nation was not an extraordinary success. Joe Biden may have forgotten that our children died, but we have not forgotten. Donald Trump has not forgotten.
During the hearings of the House Foreign Affairs Committee of Republicans, these families harshly criticized Joe Biden, saying it was all avoidable.
But what I still struggle with most is how this was all avoidable and the continued lack of information, help, and accountability and justice from the government. I know from recent testimony that the suicide bomber had been identified for days, yet our men were ordered to stand down. I also find it very frustrating that since day one, our family was lied to.
Biden was also criticized for not honoring those soldiers. However, Biden had traveled to Dover Air Force Base to receive the soldiers' remains, but their families were angry about the president's seemingly bored attitude. He looked at his watch 2 or 3 times while standing on the tarmac.
Looking at his watch,
Biden did not want to be there. I don't know what he wanted to do, but he did not want to be there. He looked at his watch multiple times. I saw it 3 times.
He didn't say anything about Riley. And to this day, he has yet to say those 13 kids' names.
Trump politicized this matter multiple times afterward. Following his visit to the cemetery, he published footage of the visit on his campaign pages, in which he criticized the Biden administration for their handling of the situation. In one picture, he can be seen smiling while giving a thumbs up at the graves. The problem is that American federal law prohibits political campaigns or election-related activities within national military cemeteries. When Trump was criticized for this, he posted a statement from the family members of the fallen soldiers, who thanked Trump and gave their approval. He also seemed to suggest that the issue was merely about photography. Trump has long criticized the Biden administration for its handling of the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Kamala and Crooked Joe's catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan has just been horrible for all of us. 3 years ago, Kamala and Biden's incompetence left 13 dead warriors, hundreds of civilians killed and grievously wounded, and $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment on the planet abandoned to the Taliban, right into the hands of the Taliban.
Since Trump was invited by the families, officials were concerned that the visit could turn into a political event. As a result, they imposed some restrictions, including that Trump was not allowed to bring his campaign staff. Additionally, after the initial ceremony at the tomb of the unknown soldier, which was open to the press, Trump's visits to individual veterans' graves in a section of the cemetery reserved primarily for veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan were to remain private. But Trump did not follow any of the rules, and when officials reminded him, his aides became involved in physical and verbal altercations. NPR reported that 2 members of Donald Trump's campaign staff were involved in a verbal and physical altercation on Monday with an official at Arlington National Cemetery. When the cemetery official tried to prevent the Trump campaign staff from entering Section 60, the staffers verbally abused the official and pushed them aside, according to NPR. However, Trump's campaign denied this claim. An official linked with Trump's campaign posted on X, saying they were granted access to have a photographer there and that there was no problem. But later on, Arlington Cemetery confirmed the incident as well. This cemetery is under the control of the American Army, which also backed the cemetery staff, saying that the employee was unfairly attacked by the Trump campaign. The American military rarely comments on political matters, and in its statement, it did not explicitly mention the former president's name but defended its employee, stating that she was ensuring adherence to the rules. Trump talked about this incident in his speech in Michigan on Thursday and criticized Vice President Harris.
We know by her actions, and we know by her inaction, we know she does not care about working people, about the middle class, about the American citizen. She does not respect you. Ask the families of the 13 incredible service member heroes who died during the surrender of Afghanistan, which was surrendered by Kamala and Sleepy Joe, whether or not Kamala Harris cares about our young people and our military. Those incredible parents and sisters and brothers, they asked me to go yesterday to Arlington, and I did. And while I was there for a long time. It was very tough to get to because I was not in a good position to get there. It was very far away, but I did. I made it and I got there right on time. And I spent a lot of time there. And while I was there, those families that asked me to be there, as they said, 3 families plus 1 soldier who was horrifically injured, both legs and an arm. And they asked me if I would be there, so I went. And while we were there, they said, could you take pictures over the grave of my son, my sister, my brother? Would you take pictures with us, sir? I said, absolutely, I did. Joe Biden killed their children by incompetence. Should have never happened. Kamala killed their children, just as though they had a gun in their hand, by gross incompetence. And not one general or incompetent bureaucrat was fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And then they accused me of having a picture taken at the tombstone with a family because they loved the president. They love me and I love them. I got to know them.
Trump has said multiple times that the army loves him and does not want Joe Biden. This recent incident has revived fears among experts that Trump could use the military for his political purposes if he wins a second term in office. During his time in office, Trump reinstated the rank of a Navy SEAL convicted of posing with the corpse of an Islamic State detainee and threatened to deploy U.S. soldiers to quell protests nationwide. Retired U.S. Navy Admiral James Stavridis criticized Trump on X, saying, "This is no way for a government official or political candidate to conduct themselves on the sacred ground of Section 60 at Arlington. The final resting place of so many heroic Americans, including some who died under my command, is not a political prop." But Trump denies exploiting the visit, stating, "I don't need publicity." At a rally in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, Trump reiterated his claim that he posed for photos at the invitation of the families, despite the fact that they did not have the authority to approve what were essentially campaign photos.
I wasn't doing it I don't need publicity. I get a lot of publicity. I would like to get a lot less publicity. I would pay to get, I'm the only guy who would hire a public relations agent to get less publicity. Most hire to get publicity. So I was taking pictures at the grave, one with the sister and then the mother and then the father come in and then another group at a different grave. And it was so beautiful. And we left, and everything was nice. And then later on that day, I heard that we were using the graves of those soldiers for public relations purposes, you know? And that was all put out by the White House. Joe Biden killed those young people because he was incompetent. And then they tell me that I used their graves for public relations services, and I didn't. And I'll tell you what, it was a disgrace. And she was involved. Remember, she said she was the last person in the room, right, when they made the decision